Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Southeast Linuxfest, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour. To be a part of the program, it is a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalaya. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you as another episode of the Ask Noah show kicks off this hour. Joining me, my co-host, Mr. Steve Ovens. Welcome in, sir.
So, hot take for you, Noah.
Okay, hit me.
I think that AI is probably a good thing for being able to ask and answer questions related to specific topics that you can verify, such as what happens when I type this command.
Okay, so as a method of double checking, not as a single source of truth.
Yeah, I think so. It also gives you a spot. It gives you a back and forth or a parrot on your shoulder that you can actually kind of talk to and have it go back and forth. We've talked in the past about how there seems to be a wide variance in models and the quality that's out there. And so you can't just go to any model and assume that it's going to be decent at things. I'm looking at you, Gemini. But in general, I've found it very useful when just having it ask you questions or having a dialogue with things in order to help spur on ideation, right? So the process of coming up with additional ideas or thinking about things in a different way than what you had thought about them before.
Okay, so you don't necessarily believe that AI can be creative, but you do believe that AI can inspire creativity from humans.
I do. I think so. I think that, and I guess the definition of creativity is really where we split a hair on this, because I wasn't even thinking about creativity as much as I was thinking about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this sort of idea. What does it look like? And then the AI comes back with a bunch of stuff. And when you read that, you're like, oh, well, that's not actually quite right. But that in and of itself, that process spurs on an idea that, or a realization that you had that triggered a better idea than what you started with.
So there's an organization I work with. They might call this the cupcake model. So you have a cupcake, you built a cupcake, and you bring it to your friend, and somebody else adds a little bit of frosting because it would be a little bit better. And somebody looks at the cupcake with a little bit of frosting, and they add some sprinkles on it. And somebody adds, and you build the cupcake up, and it's constantly additive onto the rest of it. So you would say AI might serve as either a force multiplier by way of adding stuff up, or as the base layer, and then the humans can add stuff up.
I do think so. And I think as long as you're careful, right, you have to be aware that it is very sycophantic. So it's going to like enthusiastically tell you that you're right unless it is coached otherwise or something is really, really a bad idea. So you still have to be careful about it. Setting it up, one of the things that I found kind of interesting to do is setting it up in kind of an adversarial way. I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to take on two different personas and attack this question from those personas. So one is like, so for example, when I'm dealing with a technical problem that I'm really trying to think through, you're a network engineer, you're a Linux engineer. There is some crossover between that, but here's the thing that I am trying to deal with, and what would each one of those personas say about this? And watching how that plays out has been very informative for me, because it exposes things that I might not have thought about. And one of the things that language models do very well, whether or not they're accurate, is they are able to personify words. Like they're very able to understand what would a network admin say and what would a Linux admin say, at least in broad strokes. What do they care about? So I thought that was kind of an interesting take that we don't hear a lot about.
Do you think that you can prompt engineer the sycophant out of an AI?
To some extent, yes, but it's still going to be it's still going to have that baked into its training because of the way that we train things. So when we train a model, you essentially give it a digital cookie every time it gets things right. And so it's constantly trying to do that. That's baked into its training process. You can give it a persona that is constantly trying to poke holes in things, and that will work reasonably well, but it's still going to be like, let's debate holding cheese on with glue versus sticking a toothpick on it, right? Oh, that sounds like a great idea. Let's have that debate instead of just saying, no, that's dumb. Don't put glue on your pizza.
So in other words, it's still a sycophant insofar as it wants to please you. You've just told it that the way to please me is to disagree with me or find holes in my argument.
Exactly.
Food for thought. You know, it'd be interesting to hear from people at live@asknoahshow.com. Write in and tell us what you think about AI, because as this starts to become a more prominent part of the show, as we start to gently dip into it, I don't ever foresee a time where we're going to go all out AI. In fact, is it fair to say, Steve, that both of you and I came into this as somewhat skeptics, and we got and we kind of came, maybe not late isn't the right word, but we certainly were not the first on the scene, and it's been kind of a slow progression for both of us, slower for me than you?
I think that we've been very intentional about keeping it out of the show, trying to see where it's coming from. You and I have been having discussion for months and months behind the scene about watching this stuff, but we do try to be very intentional about when we talk about something. I intend to give a novel approach or something that struck me as interesting more than just giving generic airtime to AI, because I think the more interesting conversation is like, hey, I'm trying it like this and I had some really interesting results. And I don't think it's reasonable to bury your head in the sand and say, I'm not going to use it at all. And so having the conversation about, I had it and I bumped into this, or, I'm using this model and it's really terrible at this sort of thing. All of those sorts of little discoveries along the way. I think that the challenge here is that it is a really good accelerator for people that have already built up a base of skill, right? So, for example, you're doing some sort of sysadmin task that you know that you could do this. I absolutely could sort around setting up, a Grafana dashboard to look exactly like whatever. I 100% could do that. However, I could also just say, I want it to look like this, go away and create this thing on the API, and I come back and I tweak it, because then I can go do something else. Because the value in that task is not the creation of the dashboard, it's the extraction of the information and what you do with it. And so I think that there is, I think that portion of AI is going to continue to exist whether or not the bubble pops shortly.
So interesting to your point about you can't just stick your head in the sand and hope that things get better. I think the favorite analogy that I've heard was actually from Matt Hicks. I think it was last year at Summit. And the analogy that he used was, imagine in a basketball game, if there was an energy drink that you could take that would guarantee that every time you take a basketball shot, it goes through the hoop and it's nothing but net. That doesn't mean that the speed at which you run on the court no longer matters. It doesn't mean that passing from one player to another means. It means that one aspect of the game has, there's one aspect of the game that has a quote unquote superpower. The approach there, if you wanted to win basketball games, would absolutely not be, well, I'm not taking that. I'm never taking that under any circumstances. I'm not taking the energy. Well, you'd be foolish, right? To a degree, if the other team is taking it, there is value in saying, well, I want to be on a level playing field. It would also be foolish to take the other opposite of the extreme. Wow, we don't have to practice anymore. We don't have to work out anymore. We don't have to worry about anything because we're going to make every basket we throw. Neither one of those approaches would be wise. The wise approach would be, okay, so this aspect of the game is covered. Got that. Now let's focus on all of these other aspects of the game to make those aspects better. And I'm kind of hearing that from you as well.
You know what? You've summarized that very well, I think.
Well, I stole it from him. Okay, so Steve, this week is an exciting week because you and I get to hang out together. That's not why it's exciting. It is exciting for you and I, but it's exciting that we're going to hang out together because it is the week of Southeast Linuxfest in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I thought we would take up. So first of all, if you are in the greater Charlotte area, this would be the year, if ever there was a year, this would be the year to come help out at Southeast Linuxfest. If you can make it on Wednesday as a volunteer to help load in equipment, we would be beyond deeply grateful. If you can't make it for that, if you can carve out Friday, if you can carve out Saturday, if you can carve out Sunday, or if you can carve out all 3 days to attend Southeast Linuxfest, we encourage you in the strongest possible terms to try to do so. We get that coming into this, it's coming up this weekend, that the idea that people are going to take a cross-country flight or going to fly in from another country or whatever, I get it that that's probably not going to happen. But if there's any possible way that we can convince you to make this the year that you attend South, I'm telling you, this would be the year to attend South. Now, there's going to be a couple of changes this year. The first thing that is changing is the venue. It is at the Sonesta rather than the Sheraton. It's been the Sheraton for the last 10 plus years, a little bit longer than that. And so it's changing this year, and that is going to be both a good thing and new. It's going to be good because it is surrounded by other hotels and by restaurants, so you're no longer stuck at just one particular hotel, and no longer you're locked into one particular price point. It also means that if you're trying to figure out meals outside of the hotel restaurant, it means that you've got lots of options to include. Food trucks are going to be there, and then there's a lot of little restaurants surrounding the area. The different part is going to be that there's going to be some transportation from the airport to the Sonesta, whereas the Sheraton had a direct shuttle. This one's going to be a little bit different. So if you're flying in, take that into account. But really what we're targeting is the people in the Charlotte area, in North Carolina, in South Carolina. If you're anywhere within a few hour drive and you think you can make it up, please make this the year you come out to Southeast Linuxfest. Again, if you have any ability to be here on Wednesday, we would love to see you. We could really use the help unloading equipment. But if not, focus on the weekend and make sure to come. And then flag Steve and I down and come say hi. We'll be at a broadcast booth. We'll have the full Ask Noah team will be there and all the regalia set up. We usually collect a couple of people that come hang out. So it should be a good time. But I thought it'd be a moment to talk for just a moment, if you would, Steve. Why do you pick Southeast Linuxfest out of all the conferences that you can attend? And I understand that you push pretty hard to try to make this one a priority. What is it about this Linux Fest that captures your attention and causes you to say, that's the one I'm going to go to?
Even though I knew this question was coming, I have a couple of glib answers that I would think off the top. So I like the Carolinas and I like sweet tea. So that's definitely a reason. It's hardly a reason for me to fly halfway across the country, but then again, Noah's there, and if I don't go and he's just my next door neighbor, he kind of shows me up. That's right. I mean, part of it's like pride issue, right?
There's nothing wrong with being proud of your sweet tea love, Steve. No reason at all. It's the South. It's almost necessary.
Some of it is I've been going to South for quite a long time at this point, even though I haven't been able to necessarily make it every year. There's a lot of familiar faces, and that means something to me. Like I've gone to Texas Linux Fest, and that was good, but it's not the same for me because I see a bunch of people that I wouldn't see otherwise, and that has been really great. So we have friends of the show, Brandon and Chris, and they show up at a bunch of stuff wherever we're at, and that's really great. And we have folks that come up from one of your client churches, and those folks are really great to sit around and chat with. And honestly, it's a different atmosphere at Self than the other conferences that I've been at. And part of that is the size is just about right. So I've been to huge conferences and I've been to small conferences. And the small conferences are great if you are a local, because you can get together and everybody knows all the local spots and you have that common bond. But as somebody who flies into these places, like I went to Kansas City Linux Fest once and I've been to Texas Linux Fest a few times. Those are smaller than Self, or at least they were. And that meant that I didn't have a common connection with the folks. Whereas with Self, I have been going long enough that even if you don't know me by name, you recognize my face and I recognize you. And that means something, right?
100%. So I think in the past we've done the live stream on Saturday. I'm thinking this year we change it to Thursday just because there's been other stuff that gets going on Saturday, and we might be better off to do it late in the evening on Friday. So you can watch, we'll post it on a couple different places. We'll have it available on X. If you follow me on X, Ask Noah Show. If you are on Mastodon, I'm at Kernel Linux at linuxrocks.online. And so check out those places. Of course, we'll post in the Geek Lab. You can always find the latest there. Hashtag geeklab:linuxdelta.com. And you can check out the live stream. It's one of the only times that we break out all of the video stuff and do a video stream, so you can see Steve and I's smiling mugs and loving on each other and talking about the wonderful world of Linux. And there's a couple of projects that are brewing. We'll talk about a few of them as we roll through the show. But before we do all that, let's do some feedback. Our first email comes in from Ziggy. Ziggy says, "Hey guys, I have a Ring doorbell, basically, since they were first released. And it's always been my intention that as I got my head wrapped around the more complicated parts of a home lab and home management system, I'd eventually dump Ring and install a more private, friendly camera. I'm aiming to have local storage, probably managed by Frigate, and all of the files stored on TrueNAS scale. I want remote access via WireGuard or Tailnet. I've read a lot about how good the privacy-friendly Real-Link cameras are, and I'm hoping that you can recommend an alternative that would integrate nicely with Home Assistant. The camera needs to be capable of being powered by a regular doorbell wired power supply, as the Ring doorbell is, and to be Wi-Fi, because Ethernet is not an option. Eventually, I'll have to install another camera at the back door. Would be mains powered, but again, Wi-Fi only because of its location. So any advice with that would also be appreciated. In episode 493, you had some interesting things to say about HVAC and Shelly projects, which links back to a query I had with you some time ago. But I'll leave feedback on that at a later time. Love the show as always. Regards, Ziggy." So Steve, if you woke up in Ziggy's shoes, what would you do if you needed a doorbell and it had to be Wi-Fi only and Home Assistant compatible?
Wi-Fi only. I would smash a bunch of holes through my wall. That's the honest truth, because that's what I literally did. You remember Kenny helped us drill a bunch of holes and we missed a few times?
I do.
Yep. I literally did that. I drilled holes until I got the right place. Having said that, the Real-Link does have a Wi-Fi version, and it does have a Wi-Fi version that plugs in. I believe it's powered on the same cable as the doorbell, like a traditional doorbell. I can't speak much to that because I have the hardwired one. So I'm not exactly sure, but that would be where my first place of investigation is. What would you do?
So a couple things. First of all, are you sure it was Kenny drilling the holes where we had the multiple things? Because I seem to remember that part going pretty well. I think it was when you sent your dear beloved friend into your attic that you wound up with some extra holes by way of his foot going through your lights and such.
We had to poke a couple holes coming up from the furnace room, if you recall, and trying to get into the exact channel where the doorbell was somewhat of a challenge.
Okay. Here's the thing. I'm with Steve in knocking a bunch of holes, and here's why. I've gone down this route, and I know exactly where it ends. And here's where this route ends. There is no Wi-Fi doorbell that I'm aware of that is internet free. All of them require an app, to include the Real-Link ones. I know that because I had a client that asked for exactly this, and he has beautiful brickwork all the way along the front of his house. And so we had suggested a Real-Link doorbell because we've always, like, all of the Real-Links that you've had, Steve, we've been able to make work. Even if we had to use an app to set the things up, we were eventually able to get them to work otherwise, right? And
yes.
At least with the Wi-Fi one was not an option. Effectively, you have two options and neither of them are great. Option one, you completely use their app and everything goes through it, and it's basically a cloud-linked doorbell, in which case I would somewhat argue, other than the agreement with law enforcement where they get unwarranted access to your Ring camera, I'm not exactly sure what problem you're solving. Your other option, which isn't a great solution here, is you can set it up with the app and you can expose an RTMP feed, which gets you the camera functionality, kind of, But in my opinion, where they woefully miss the boat is you don't get any of the doorbell functionality. So you push the button and nothing really happens because it doesn't really know. It's just at that point, it's just a Wi-Fi RTSP doorbell. And oh, by the way, you still need the app at least long enough to get it set up. So I don't have any good options for you. And the other thing is, so then I looked down the access route, which is kind of my go-to. And they've got lots of wired options, and they don't require. It exposes the doorbell over SIP, so you can have it just call whatever endpoint you want, to include Home Assistant or a SIP door system or a SIP phone system or your cell phone or whatever. And the camera is just RTSP, so it's two very wide open protocols. The problem is they don't make it in a Wi-Fi version, and even if they did, it requires PoE to power the thing. So I don't know what I would do. And if you find the solution, Ziggy, let me know, because we have gone. So part of the story that you don't care about. So we installed this Real Link at this client's house. And when we realized that if we tied it into surveillance station, that the doorbell functionality wasn't going to work, we're like, well, this would be kind of, half a job kind of a thing. And so we said, all right, well, we'll do it with the app. So we set it up with the app. That has created all manner of problems because they're not terribly tech savvy people, and only one person can have it on their app account. So now his wife has it and she gets all of the alerts, but he can't, which is what they want, because she's the one that's home and has to answer the door. The problem is they had a package go missing, and he's trying to look through footage and he can't get to it because he can't get to it on his app on the phone. And it's just a mess. It's been nothing but a mess. And so we actually went back out and we were like, okay, if push came to shove, how would we run a wire? And there's just no good way to do it. His entire front of his house, he lives in $1 million+ or $1 million+ house, and the whole front of it is this super ornate, elaborate brickwork. Like, there's just, without making it extraordinarily ugly, there's just no way that we can think of to get a wired doorbell there. Just not a thing. So in some ways, I'm with you, Ziggy. I feel your pain. I understand what you mean when you say I just can't get a wire there. Been there. I just don't have any good answers. And like I say, if you come across a good answer, please share it with me, because I'm looking. How's that for a depressing answer?
It's an honest
Maybe the audience can help us. It's an honest answer. Maybe the audience can help us. Tim writes in, and Tim has some good news about thermostats. He writes in and says, "Hi, Noah and Steve. For a few years now, I've been using radio thermostat model CT50 for my home HVAC. I bought it because it does not need a phone home for the company to use it. It connects over Wi-Fi, can be network controlled by Home Assistant. That was until last year when it became flaky and offline. So I went looking for a replacement. I focused on Wi-Fi connected devices and could only find a thermostat that did not require an internet connection to the mothership to work. After hearing Steve's recommendation of Z-Wave devices, I looked into their reliability and started to look for thermostats that support Z-Wave. I found that the Honeywell T6 Z-Wave programmable thermostat," and he gives the exact model number, "the following statement on Honeywell's site caught my eye. How do I connect my Z-Wave thermostat to the internet? Answer. Residio," which is the new name for Honeywell stuff, "Z-Wave thermostats offer a connection to any Z-Wave based network controller or smart hub. The network controller or smart hub is generally treated as the primary access point for all compatible locally connected devices for visibility. Residio's Z-Wave thermostat does not have Wi-Fi or a mobile app or web portal access." He continues, "They don't even offer a way to connect it to the internet. Some quick searching found that they are well supported in Home Assistant, so I bought one and a Z-Wave USB port that I connected to my network Raspberry Pi. It's all set up, and as Noah likes to say, Bob's your uncle. I'm in business. Only local control and a remote control via WireGuard. Looks like Honeywell does not manufacture the exact model anymore, but they still offer a newer version of Residio's Z-Wave thermostat that work the same way. Love the show. Keep it going." So I copied that model number, and I'm going to go do some digging with the newest model, because that will be something we want to bookmark. Steve and I were just talking about, I think last week or the week before, we were talking before the show, we're like, why does nobody do this? Why does nobody make just a Home Assistant native thing that doesn't require the cloud? So why, this is not that hard. Somebody must do it. And thank God, turns out somebody does, and thank God somebody, turns out in the audience, knows who that is and is able to write in and share it with us. So for all of you wondering about thermostats, here's your sign. What do you think, Steve?
I also, when the current one, if it kicks the bucket, I will definitely go this route. Although I'm knocking on wood here. I've had really outstanding success with my current one, which is a Centralite. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. To a degree, I feel like our grandparents would be rolling over in their graves, Steve, if they were like, yeah, thermostat, I mean, hopefully I can make it 5 or 7 years. I mean, really would suck if I have to replace it before 5. And meanwhile, they're probably saying to themselves, oh, Sonny, I had one thermostat for 45 years in my house. There's a little, mercury thing that slid one side or the other to keep the temperature and worked just fine. And today, in today's disposable society, we're like, 5 years. Yes, win. Fred writes in and says, hi folks, in the last episode you talked about UL listed devices, reliability, and insurance. I'd like to offer some clarification to the discussion. Insurers and local inspectors don't require UL listed. They generally expect components tested and approved by one of the nationally recognized testing laboratories. NRTL, UL is the most recognized, followed by ETL. The European Union has taken a different approach, allowing companies to self-certify their products and identifying items with the CE mark. Thanks, Fred. So, Steve, were you aware of this? And I guess this is kind of new information to me. I was definitely not aware of the self-certification thing, and I guess I was not aware that insurers didn't really... It sounds like he's saying they don't really care about UL listed. It seems like if I was an insurance company and didn't want to pay a claim, that would be something I would pursue.
I don't have enough knowledge about this. I was familiar with what happens over in the EU to some extent, although the self-certify, oftentimes what companies will do over there is they actually will have a third party come in and do all of the testing, and then they have the paperwork to say, like, no, we actually did the testing. So I've heard from the Home Assistant people that they worked with a third-party auditor because Home Assistant, being as it is, had a whole bunch of stuff that they wanted to, because it's not just Home Assistant. They have all of the devices that may go along with Home Assistant. When they produce a device, they do a bunch of certification and stuff like that. So I'm not particularly surprised, but I've never dug into it this much. I still buy the UL stuff, even if it's technically not required. The extra little bit of money gives me the warm and fuzzies, so I'll take it.
Absolutely. And supports what the UL does, right? Like it just continues to tell them that it's a worthwhile effort and please keep doing this. And tells places like Shelley, hey, please keep selling the ones that are UL certified. So just kind of good all around. TLDR section, I designed industrial control panels under the UL 508 program. This allowed OEMs to label custom electronic panels following the UL 508 standard for delivery to industrial customers. The UL listing didn't make the panel safe, just ensured that it was built to the standards of 508A. We still had to conform to whatever requirements as dictated by local authorities that the equipment was being installed. In the distant past, I think it was Steve, mentioned the Gosund Wild Tua smart outlet. I bought it, I disassembled it, as one does, after inspecting I love this. After inspecting it, I put it back in the box, never to be connected to a live circuit. This is a perfect example of a widely sold device that may cost somebody their life or property someday. So, Steve, what can you tell me about the campfire starter? I'm sorry, the Tua smart outlet.
That was some time ago. He is correct. That was absolutely me. I have since removed most of them, and I say most. I have one left, and I thought I had gotten rid of all of them. So this is the second time that a listener has written in and caused me to do an audit and then expose something that I had thought I had cleaned up. So I have one more to get rid of. It's super low traffic. It handles my amp downstairs in the projector room, and so it doesn't even get a lot of that thing's never on anyways, but I'll have to go get that taken care of.
Yeah. It would be interesting if you're willing to do this, if you pull it out and don't have another use for it, to pull it open and see if we can figure out what Fred is talking about.
I have a bunch of them sitting on the floor in my basement because, like I said, I went around and ripped them all out. Part of the reason I went with them, this was back in 2021, was because I didn't have CT clamps at the time. And so I was using them as ways to get a handle on what the power usage was in a given room. So when I went and bought the Emporia CT clamps and started clamping all of my things, I no longer needed the power outlets, and they were actually causing somewhat of a problem. So I yanked most of them out anyways.
So furthering our discussion about AI, Steve, I rented a car for Southeast Linuxfest, and you're not going to believe this, actually, probably will. It has AI built in to the Gatdon car. What do you think of that?
I think it's right up your alley.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. You know, there's anything I said, when I want to buy my car, I've told myself routinely that the thing that I really want is I want my car connected to the internet. That's the first thing. The second thing is I want everything that I interact with the car. I want those interactions to go to some central server. This is an important part. I don't want control over that server. It has to be somebody else's problem. And then the really, really important part, I want them to collect all of this information and presumably sell it, because it's probably worth a lot of money. And I didn't buy the car for me. I bought it to make them money. Those things are all very true about me.
Especially needing to be connected to the internet, and
yes.
And you probably want the AI reporting your usage back so that you can have the convenience of knowing every place that you've went, because that seems like something you want.
So I had no idea that this thing was built into the car. Right now, here's some backstory. I did not choose the car. When I go to rent a car, I'm a very utilitarian guy. I want the cheapest possible thing that gets the job done. So I log on to the rental car site and I say I'm looking for a car and I'm looking for the cheapest thing, and it gives me the thing, and I'm like, okay. And I show up. Apparently, the one vehicle that nobody wants is the luxury SUVs. So the rental car guy hands me the keys to a Mercedes SUV. Okay? I get into this thing and I start driving down the interstate. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? I'm driving. That's what I'm doing. But I had no idea about the AI component of this. I'm driving down the interstate, and all of a sudden this voice comes out of the ether and starts talking to me. Now, my initial impression is, I must have, some cars have like the voice assistant thing, and you hit the button and then you talk to the car and then you tell it what to do, and then it like turns the radio on or off or something like that. That's what I thought I did. I thought I must have bumped a button or something. Then I realize I can't get rid of the voice. She's just always there. So eventually I start asking the voice, like, who are you and how do I make you go away? And lo and behold, Steve, she starts talking to me. She's like, I'm the MBXU virtual assistant, and I don't want to ruin it. So here's what I did. I did what any good, safe driver would do. I reached into my back and I pulled out a microphone and a recorder. No, I'm just kidding. I waited until I got parked to do this. But I grabbed a recorder and I grabbed a microphone and I said, I host a talk radio show every day. I want you to come on the air and I want you to introduce yourself. Here's what the AI had to say. Hey, Mercedes.
How may I help you?
So you are the AI assistant built into the Mercedes. Can you say hello to the listeners of Critical Thought and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Hello to all listeners out there. I'm the MBUX virtual assistant, designed to enhance your experience with Mercedes-Benz vehicles. I'm here to provide you with information, answer questions, and make your journey more enjoyable by offering assistance with a wide variety of topics. Whether you're curious about astronomy or need details about your next destination, I'm at your service to ensure you have a pleasant and informative ride.
So I think to myself, Steve, I have to start asking her questions. The really important things, the things that will help me get from point A to point B. Hey, Mercedes.
How may I help you?
What's the circumference of Mars?
Mars has a diameter of approximately 4,212 miles, which gives it a circumference of about 13,242 miles. This makes it roughly half the size of Earth, highlighting its position as the second smallest planet in our solar system.
Could you convert that to cows?
If we assume an average length of a cow to be about 8 feet, we can calculate how many cows would fit along the circumference of Mars. Given that Mars's circumference is approximately 13,200 miles, this converts to about 69,776,000 feet. Dividing this by the average cow length, it would take roughly 8,722,000 cows to span the circumference of Mars. Isn't it fascinating to think of such a bovine measurement?
So, I don't know about you, Steve, but I walked away from that interaction thoroughly enriched, knowing that 8 million cows is what it would take to outline the circumference of Mars. That's a necessary piece.
I enjoyed the play on words when she said bovine measurement. I was thinking she's playing on the word divine and just substituting in cow. Very clever.
So it didn't take very long at all, Steve, before my kids start getting into this, and they start asking the car questions.
Hey, Mercedes.
How may I help you?
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
The age-old question of what came first, the chicken or the egg, has intrigued many. Scientifically speaking, eggs have been around for millions of years, long before the emergence of chickens. So, in terms of evolutionary history, eggs came first.
Philosophically speaking, which came first?
Philosophically, the question of whether the chicken or the egg came first can be seen as a classic causality dilemma, questioning whether the origin or the method of creation is more fundamental. Different philosophical traditions might emphasize different aspects, with some focusing on the necessity of a creator, the chicken, and others on the process of creation, the egg. Thus, the answer can vary depending on one's philosophical outlook.
I think that caught me a little bit, Steve. So anybody who has had an Alexa or whatever has likely asked it stupid questions or done stupid things. That part really didn't really catch me off guard or wasn't new or novel to me. I think the part that kind of caught me off guard was this thing is designed to be inside of a vehicle and really kind of there to help. And it answers ridiculous questions and actually engages with you, which had a weird, uncanny, unexpected effect of making the ride more enjoyable.
Hey, Mercedes.
How may I help you?
What's your favorite color?
I love green, especially traffic lights.
So eventually I got to the point where I start thinking about, is this really safe? If I'm actually driving down the road and talking to this thing, how safe is this and what are the consequences going to be? Hey, Mercedes.
How may I help you?
What would you say if I told you I find it a little bit disconcerting that there's an AI assistant built into the car?
I understand that having an assistant built into your car might feel unusual at first. The MBUX virtual assistant is designed to enhance your driving experience by providing helpful information and support during your journeys. If you have any concerns or questions about the assistant's functionalities or features, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to provide more information.
What if I'm afraid that I'm either going to become distracted talking to you while I'm supposed to be driving the car or that you crashed the car?
You're sitting in a Mercedes-Benz. You're doing fine.
That seems like an arrogant answer to me. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's fine. It's fine.
So, I mean, really though, once you get past the novelty of it, this is going to be life, right? That's a 2022 model. So imagine what it's like in 2026. Heck, imagine what it's going to be like in 2036. We are not going to go back the other direction, right? There's not going to be less of this. There's going to be more. And frankly, the part that's a little terrifying, how many people do you think don't even think or care that this requires a persistent internet connection, that they're likely logging all of these things, that they're likely selling all the information? How many people do you think look right past all of that and say, I just think it's great. I ask her and before I even have to say anything, she just tells me that I'm going to be stuck in traffic and that the intersection 3 miles up is blocked and I should take this exit instead of that exit. And I think that's just wonderful. I just think that's great. It's so helpful. That's going to be the vast majority of people walking around planet Earth. And I don't know, man, integrated into the car, really? And, here's another part that I think is interesting. When I first brought this to your attention, I said, Steve, it can't do any of the critical functionalities of the car. It can't start, can't stop, can't gas, can't brake, can't do any of that. And what was your response?
That you know of.
Right. So effectively, you would say this is one software update away from, assuming that, and it does, I believe this, it's all connected to the CAN bus, which it is. It's all drive-by-wire, which it is. So assuming that, it's literally a software configuration, presumably, to say that it would not be that hard to have this thing conceivably do more.
It's also, it is not out of the realm of possibility for a company to have built functionality that is just latent in the software that just is not exposed. We've had lots and lots of examples of that throughout history, and I wouldn't at all be shocked if it exists and is even plumbed in and just not active. That would not at all surprise me.
It'd just be kind of like they're waiting for the day to say that this is safe, this is certified, we have confidence in this. Now we can turn this thing on, and all of a sudden, boom, as a listener said, I like to say, Bob becomes your uncle, and then all of a sudden the thing is there.
Exactly.
Well, I got to tell you, it's a nice toy. Wouldn't spend my own money on it. Age verification laws are spreading fast, and they have been keeping, they being its FOSS, been keeping tight tabs on it for a while. California's Digital Age Assurance Act, also known as AB 1043, was first to land. It was signed in October 2025, with Colorado following its own version, SB 26-051. So neither of these made concessions for open source in the original language, which left Linux distributions and other community-run projects in a very precarious position. But AB 1043 required OS providers to collect a user's age and birth date account at sign-up and share it with apps through a real-time API. Starting January 1st, 2027, open source projects got no special treatment in the original text, which is something that its FOSS wrote about when those bills started drawing attention. But more recently, Linux is getting a free pass on age verification in California and Colorado, and other open source software are getting similar treatment, some going as far as to explicitly excluding code and repository and container platforms. So, Steve, this is one of those things where I think we were kind of sitting on the sidelines and saying, like, we'll wait until this takes off and goes one direction or another. What do you think about Linux getting kind of a pass on this?
I mean, I think that this is generally a good exception to have, given the stated goals of trying to be able to not trample on the copyleft movement, which this very much would do. So in general, I think it's good to have an exception. I don't like the fact that we have to have an exception in the first place, but that's a different question.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is going to be problematic or that companies like Microsoft and Apple raise a stink, or do you think that they want to be in this boat so they don't really care? And so, because I can see this going one of two ways. Way one is they go, wait, why do they get an exception and we don't? So we have to do something that they don't. That's not, and I could see them making a stink. On the other hand, I could also see it playing out where the entire world goes, yeah, whatever, the nerds are going to throw a fit and they're going to do whatever. We can't really stop them anyway. So let the nerds be nerds, and normal people will become normal people. And it's just another, DRM type thing where we just have kind of a fork in the road, and you just give up a certain amount of stuff to be privacy conscious, and the rest of the world trudges on.
I mean, isn't that how it always has been?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I went to rent a film, and it was only available on one particular platform, and I went to see if I could get that platform to work on Linux, and try as I might, enable DRM, did all the little hoops, and I just could not get this video to play. And I eventually broke down, and I went and borrowed it just so happened I was working for an organization that had a Windows laptop, and I was done doing the work that they asked me to do, and I was like, I don't think they'll mind if I... So I took and just used Chrome to play the video out the HDMI port, and then plugged it into my computer, and was able to get the video in a friendly format, let's say, where I could watch it on my television. But, there was just, I feel like I'm pretty tech savvy when it comes to, hey, how do I make this thing work? And there were just no amount of buttons I could click on, no amount of things I could install, no amount of wrappers, no amount of emulating user agents. There was just nothing I was going to be able to do to get this stupid thing to work on a Linux box. And I don't know. I just, with the world going towards CAPTCHA, with the world going towards age verification, with the world going towards these things, I want to celebrate. I want to be really happy and say, "Ooh, yay! There's freedom still." And then there's a part of me that's like, seems like there's a bunch of dark clouds moving in. And even if we get a pass on the surface level, like, this problem is not going away. This problem is going to get worse, not better.
I suppose that's always the case, though. If you look back through history, the DIYers have always gone through a period of like freedom and then contraction, and then breakout in freedom and then contraction again. Because sometimes the issue is like, hey, we need to regulate this for safety. Sometimes it's we don't like the fact that they might infringe upon our stuff. You name it. We've seen it in the last 150 years where like, you go all the way back to the invention of the telephone, where farmers were using their barbed wire fence in order to make makeshift telephone communication with each other, right? All of these things, that literally happened. A lot of these places that were rural could not get phone service, period, because it wasn't worth their time. So the farmers got together and like, well, it's just a wire, and it turns out that my barbed wire fence, your barbed wire fence, and Bob's barbed wire fence all touch. So if we just actually sent that over the line, and so they started their own, like, I guess we'll call it commune. I'm not exactly sure, but
Yeah.
that has happened throughout history, right? Where the DIYers have gotten in. Did they have as good reception as everybody else? No. I mean, it's barbed wire, right? Out in the element, completely exposed. But they did it themselves. And eventually turns out that, well, they lost the telephony folks lost more and more share to these little communities popping up. And they thought, no, we're going to stamp that down. So they stamped it down. But the next invention came around. And the DIYers are always playing this battle of, you know what? It's not quite as good, but we'll survive. And then somebody comes in with we'll use the shorthand of a proprietary solution that tamps them down, and their life is just not as good. And that's the whole purpose, right? The whole purpose is to make the DIYer's life not as attractive. It's harder. It's not as good quality. You name it. That's what the goal of this is, and this cycle has continued for the last 150 years, and probably before that I don't even know.
I like that. It gives me a bit of hope. It's like expect to suffer. It'll be okay. Is kind of what I hear you saying. It kind of has a depressing twist, and then yet there's a light at the end of the tunnel that isn't an oncoming train. So it took 4 revisions for this bill to be rewritten, but finally they got to the definition of an operating system provider to exclude anyone distributing an OS under terms that recipients copy, redistribute, and modify the software. Which, if you think about it, Steve, makes all the sense in the world from a codification standpoint. So if you have access to the source code, you literally can't stop anybody from just turning the age verification thing off anyway. So why even bother bake it into the law, right? Oh, you have to do this. Well, we couldn't enforce this if we wanted to. Like, sure, we can put it in, but somebody can go download the source code and take it back out again, and there's nothing we can do about it, right? And if that's the boat you're in, why even bother to enforce it? So I'm glad to see that there is some exception. I'm glad to see that there's a little bit of breakage in the log jam. I still don't think we've seen the full effects of this yet. I still think there's plenty more to come, and I don't think it's good, to say the least. OpenAI has confidentially filed for an IPO with the Securities and Exchange Commission, joining the party a week after Anthropic did the same, days before Elon Musk's SpaceX is set to hit the public market. So I'm gonna go a little bit out of order here just to kind of jumble this up. But the important part here is we got these 2 juggernauts that are both filing for public IPOs at the same time. Now here's an interesting thing. Literally the day of, or for sure the week of, but I even think it was the day of when Anthropic was going through this, they had an outage with was it Claude?
Yep.
That's great, huh? Nothing says, hey, look, our thing is ready for the prime time. Oh, wait, where'd it go? Hold on. It's offline. Somebody restart it. Okay, there we go. It's ready for prime time. But these things are approaching an unbelievable amount of money, investing up to $800 billion for valuation for Anthropic. Anthropic has filed for multiple offers for VCs in recent weeks, more than double its current valuation, according to multiple people familiar with the matter. Still, the valuations the VC are floating indicate that there's a feverish demand that has overtaken Silicon Valley for a stake in Anthropic as the company prepares for a possible IPO later this year. So What do you make of all these companies rushing to, not rushing, because I mean, this has kind of been in the works for a while, but what do you make of all these companies finally getting to the point that they're going public?
Oh man, you're asking for a crystal ball moment. I suppose there's a couple of different takes on this that I have. So one is OpenAI in particular has been really working to fundraise in order to fundraise is not exactly correct, but gather investments, right? Going through different investment phases in order to be able to continue burning at the rate that they've been burning. Part of me thinks that this is a way for them to get the public to be able to invest. Like, they can't really go to the average person in the public and invest. But if they launch at this kind of valuation, now I am no mathematician or stock expert, but I would think this would put them on the would it be even the 500? It might even be the top 100 companies, right? So like, how index funds exist, and they basically round up the stocks of all of the most popular or the best performing or most valuable companies out there. And then we've got the Magic 7, like the Google, the Microsoft, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. In the tech world, they immediately get catapulted into that and likely are going to get sucked into those index funds. And so they're tapping into a way to do fundraising without having to do fundraising. I think that's one aspect of it. I think another aspect of it is it's the cynical take is it's time to cash out at the height of this, right? We're riding the crest of the wave, and it's probably a good time for us to try and do this.
That's what I think. Now, you would say the flip side of that is there's a potential that their books get opened up, or not the potential, their books will get opened up, and so there's a potential that everybody gets to see the dirty laundry, and it's not good.
I absolutely think that will happen.
Only time will tell, I guess. Hey, the music in our ears means we're out of time. I thank you for joining us. We record this show every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central. Please join us this Friday for a live Ask Noah show, live from Southeast Linuxfest. And join us next Tuesday as we continue the show at our regular scheduled time. You follow us on Twitter at Ask Noah Show, 6 p.m. Central, AskNoahShow.com.